king and his men stole the queen from her bed and bound her in her bones. The seas be ours, and by the powers where we will we roam. Yo ho, all hands, hoist the colors high. Heave ho, thieves and beggars, never shall we die. Now some have died.
What's up, people? It is time for another night of pirate history. We're going to be getting into the story of Charles Vane tonight. I think we might be able to make it into another one. If we do, we'll be doing Vane and Rackham. We'll at least be getting started on Rackham tonight after Vane. But we're going to start off with Captain Vane as we continue our trek through the pirates of Nassau. A little bit of the golden age of piracy. And Captain Vane's a fantastic story. He, when we later get into the histories of Nassau itself, right? I've said in past episodes that once we get through a lot of these individual pirate tales, we'll go through and do a little bit more of a deep dive on places like Tortuga and Nassau and Port Royal. And once we've gone through the stories of the pirates, as we go through the deep dive in the history of those locations, it'll make a lot more sense as we tell the story with all of those characters in it. You know what I mean? Like, it'll set the stage when we tell everybody's individual stories first. So I think that'll be cool. But Vane, when we get to that history, you'll see that he eventually kind of became a martyr for the cause, right? For the Brethren of the Coast during that time, as Woodes Rogers and the British Crown were attempting to take back control of Nassau and extinguish the seas of the pirates, right? Captain Vane kind of became a bit of a martyr, somebody who everyone could kind of rally behind, and you'll see why by the end of this story. I don't want to give away the end before we begin. For those of you that know the tale, know exactly what I mean. But he becomes a bit of a martyr for the pirates and the Buccaneers at the time. Most of the real, old Buccaneers are gone by the golden age of piracy. They're either retired or dead, or just straight up old as fuck and, hanging out on a wharf, surviving off the current piracy, or maybe riding on a boat, taking a ride on a boat, being looked after. Those Buccaneers that we read about that originally came out of the woods of the Caribbean islands, those original French hunters, that was a good bit before this. We're up around in the 1700s for sure. We just left off from Blackbeard, which was around 1718. Most of those Buccaneers were gone by then, or they were just kind of hanging around. They weren't really out on the mission. So we're going to get into Captain Vane tonight. It's going to be a good time. Let me take a look into the chat real quick. I saw Mob Rat Hunter in here a little bit earlier. Saw MRE. Always good to see you guys. Let me scroll down here and see what's going on. What's up, Sharon? Always good to see you too. Hope you're having a good night. But yeah, so we're going to get into Captain Vane here shortly. I'm going to pack this bowl up. We're going to, as usual, we will be smoking weed and talking about pirates. We cannot leave one half of that equation out. Yeah, so I'm going to pack this thing up real quick and get this story pulled up for us here. It'll be chapter 6 of the General History of the Pirates by Daniel Dafoe. As I've said in previous episodes, all of the stories that we've been telling so far have been either directly written down firsthand accounts, as in the case of like our Captain Morgan stories, Lolan Waugh, and others. Those were from one person that was actually there on the spot, wrote it down, right? So we have those. We also have stories like these presented to us by Daniel Dafoe, who was a map maker, and obviously well traveled, but he would sit with the people, right, that were there for these things or with these pirates. He would also scour through the court paperwork. A lot of these pirates very much, did end up getting arrested and going to trial. They weren't just hung on a beach, right, with no trial. You had to go through the whole process. So there are court papers for a lot of these pirates that people have heard of and whose names they know, the flags they've seen. A lot of these pirates or their crew, in some cases, the pirate captains that and have heard of were killed, at sea or at battle. Like in the case of Blackbeard, right? In our last episode, we went through Blackbeard. Blackbeard was very much dead, his head cut off and put on the bowsprit of a ship. But many of the crew at the end of that did survive and surrender. One of them was one of the most unfortunate of people as far as being in the wrong place at the wrong time goes. He was actually the one and only person that was actually full out acquitted. One was pardoned, and that was Israel Hands, who was Blackbeard's main go-to guy, his shipmate. But again, you can go back to the last episode, hear all about that. But yeah, these guys ended up going to court. They went to trial. They had lawyers, right? These are papers that still exist in archives. You can read them if you look them up. So Daniel Dafoe would either talk to people that were there with these pirates, and he would interview them while a lot of times getting information from them on the places that they had sailed that nobody else had been to, so he could add them to his maps, right? Good case of that would have been someone like William Dampier that mapped everything. He was the first, they call him the pirate scientist. He was the first human to circumnavigate the globe by ship 3 times. And he did a lot of mapping. He was an excellent artist. He would draw out the coastlines and measure everything precisely. And people like that, they would come back to Daniel Dafoe while he's making his maps. They would tell him these stories, or they would tell him about the trials, and then he would look up the court paperwork or get copies. Not look it up. They didn't have the internet, but you understand what I'm saying. He would send away for it, get copies of it, and then he would write these things down. So no different here tonight for Charles Vane. This is in the General History of Pirates. It was given to us by Daniel Dafoe, the man we were just talking about. So the story that we are going to read is presented to us from people that were there. It's a collection of firsthand accounts from the pirates themselves. All right, we've got this thing packed up, and we are just about ready to go. What's up, Sybil? Good to see you. Hope you're well. Oh, that's cool. MRE said he had a bunch of different pirate flags. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, I fuck around and win the lottery or some shit like that. Not that I really play it, but if I did play and I did win, I'm buying a pirate ship. I'm going to have one built. That's going to be one of the things I do with my fuck you money. I'll build an actual pirate ship and sail around on that thing, dude. It'd be fucking awesome. Going island to island, doing whatever the fuck you want, living on a real pirate ship. Because you could build it out custom, have it all badass, and have a lot of modern amenities in it. Obviously, it would just be the aesthetic with the, have the ropes and the sails and have it all carved badass with skulls and shit like that all over it. It would be fucking awesome. All right. And Marie says, I sold flags on Facebook years ago. Yeah, I know you used to sell all kinds of cool stuff, man, that was like war related and like history related. I think that's awesome, man. Yeah, what's up, Aegon? Good to see you, my dude. I hope you're well. You still got to hit me up so we can do that next Weird Ish. I've been waiting for you, bro. I've been waiting for you. I thought about doing one on my own this past weekend because I haven't heard from you, but I figured I would wait. You know, everybody's got shit going on. So definitely hit me up if you're interested in doing another one. If not, I'm going to do one soon. But it'd be good to be able to do another one with you. I know people like those shows when we do the Weird-ish together. Yeah, Castle would be nice too, MRE. You know, I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, one of the things that I would do if I won the lottery or had like that kind of like fuck you money would be to build a pirate ship. Now, as far as like on land, yeah, it would be really fucking cool to either have a castle or be like buy property down on one of those islands that you could sail to on your pirate ship and just turn it into a badass like old fort. You know, like an old colonial style fort, like that type of castle. That shit would be fucking amazing. You know, and then like pirate theme it out. That'd be cool, bro. Have like old decommissioned cannons and stuff like that. That would be badass, dude. All right, so here we go. Captain Charles Vane and his crew. Charles Vane was one of those who stole away the silver and gold which the Spaniards had fished up from the wrecks of the galleons in the Gulf of Florida. And he was at Providence and has since been before hinted when Governor Rogers arrived there with 2 men of war. So he was there when fucking Governor Rogers showed up. All the pirates who were found at this colony of rogues submitted and received certificates of their pardon, except Captain Vane and his crew, who, as soon as they saw the men of war enter, slipped their cable, set fire to a prize they had in the harbor, and sailed out with their piratical colors flying, firing at one of the men of war as they went off. This is the shit that I love about Captain Vane. The same things you heard me say, like when we were going through the stories of the pirate Captain Morgan and his exploits with his guys, and everybody that's listened to all these episodes knows exactly what I'm talking about. Captain Morgan did not give a fuck. This dude was not born with a fuck to give. He was off the fucking chain. And that's exactly how Charles Vane is. And that's why I said last week, Charles Vane is one of my favorite pirates, man, because this guy was just, he wasn't crazy. Like, you can't say he was out of his mind, but he was a fucking psycho. Right? You know what I mean? He knew what he was doing, but he was a fucking mad bastard. I'm telling you. So let's read that again because it's so fucking awesome. Charles Vane was one of the pirates that stole away the silver which the Spaniards had fished up from the wrecks of the galleons in the Gulf of Florida. Now, anybody that doesn't know, a quick version is during hurricanes, these Spanish galleons would wreck when they were transporting treasure from South America back to Spain. They would wreck. Most of the time, the ships were lost. We've recovered some of them. There are still a handful of them lost. They are still to be found out there. But there's museums you can go to in Florida to see the treasure that's been drug off the ocean floor. There's also a lot of people that still to this day find all kinds of gold and silver coins and jewels and shit like that after hurricanes when it dredges up the bottom and washes things ashore. So back then, when the pirates of Nassau and Port Royal and Tortuga, whenever they would hear about one of these ships wrecking or several of these ships wrecking, if they were close enough to shore, they would sail there as fast as they could so that they could dive in the water and gather up as much of the treasure as they could before the Spanish would come. Because the Spanish would bring Indians with them that were expert fucking deep divers, experts at holding their breath. And these Indians would dive into the ocean and they would literally, like even places that were way too deep for the Europeans, the pirates, right? Also, beyond just diving into the water to fish out what you could, another tactic would be for the pirates, they would wait until the Spanish had gathered up a lot of the treasure onto the beach and were waiting for another boat to come to take it off, right? And then they would just storm the beach, kill the Spanish, and steal the gold. So this is telling us here in the first opening paragraph that Charles Vane was one of those pirates that did go and steal away the silver and gold from the Spaniards, right, that they had fished up from the wrecks of the galleons in the Gulf of Florida. And right? And he was fucking there in Nassau as one of the pirate king captains, right? Very much still run by the Brethren of the Coast, right? You don't have the internet, you don't have these newspapers that come regularly. They had just heard a couple of days before that the English were coming, that they were coming to try and take over the island. The pirate captains, the kings, right, of the Brethren of the Coast, the leaders, they all got together and they formulated this plan to put them off. Well, what happened was that when Woodes Rogers showed up, it says in this next paragraph, it says all the pirates who were found at this colony, right, found at Nassau, or this colony of rogues, they say, all the pirates who were found at this colony of rogues, Nassau, they all fucking submitted and took pardons. They fucking bitched out, right? So for the past couple of 3 days, they've been all in a big uproar with all the captains. We're going to support you. We've got your back. We'll never bend. We'll never fucking surrender. Take what you want. Give nothing back, right? Pirate's life for me and all this bullshit, right? The moment that fucking Woodes Rogers showed up with 2 men of war, 2 giant warships, all of the fucking crews went to the beach and surrendered and submitted to this motherfucker and asked for pardon and just basically ditched the only true dudes that were there, which was Charles Vane and his crew. Now, don't think for a second his crew didn't instantly get bigger, right? There was obviously people that were like, yo, fuck that. I'm not turning myself into the... I don't want to fucking pardon. Fuck England, right? So there were definitely people that did that. Now, not only did Captain Vane and his crew not surrender, not ask for a pardon, right? It says Captain Vane and his crew, as soon as they saw the men of war enter, right? As soon as they saw them coming towards their beach, they got on their ship, cut their anchor, set fire to one of the boats they had just stolen in the harbor, and they sailed out with their fucking pirate flag, right? They had their black flag flying. This shit's amazing. So they basically were giving the cops a giant fuck you, right? They're like, not only are we sailing out of here, we're sailing out with our cross and bones fucking high in the sky. We're pirates. We're not asking for pardons. And fuck you, we just set some shit on fire. Deal with that, right? 2 days after they went out, they met with a sloop belonging to Barbados, which they made prize of and kept the vessel for their own use, putting aboard 5 and 20 hands. Okay, so they found a sloop that came from Barbados. They says they made a prize of it, so they stole the boat, kept it though, and they put 25 people on it, with one Yeats to command them. So some guy with the last name Yeats, they made commander of this sloop with 25 guys. A day or two afterwards, they fell in with a small interloping trader with a quantity of Spanish pieces of 8 aboard that was bound into Providence or Nassau. It was called the John and Elizabeth. That was the name of the boat they came across, which they also took along with them. With these 2 sloops, Vane went to a small island and cleaned, where they shared their booty and spent some of the time in a riotous manner of living, as is the custom of pirates. Okay, so they left, right? Woodes Rogers shows up with the men of war. He's there to offer everybody pirates. Captain Vane and his crew are literally ready to go to war with the English, right? What's up, Maureen? They've been talking about for 2 days with everybody on the island. Fuck these dudes. We're going to kill them when they get here. No one's taking a pirate or a pardon, right? This is a pirate kingdom. Right? This pirate kingdom has existed for a long time. It's going to stay that way. We're not giving this shit back. And then as soon as the fucking cops show up, right? As soon as Woodes Rogers and those 2 giant warships come into the harbor, everybody bails on Captain Vane and his crew and says, fucking on second thought, I'm just going to take a pardon. So Captain Vane and his guys jump in their boat, cut anchor, set fire to a boat in the harbor, and they leave with their pirate flag in the air. They end up taking 2 more boats. One of them they put 25 guys on and make it another pirate boat in their fleet now, and they give it a captain. Then they grab another fucking boat that's full of Spanish pieces of 8, right? Gold coins. And they took that also. So now with those two boats, they're 3 boats deep, right? So they had their ship and they've taken 2 sloops. And now they've just gone to some random small little island or cay in the Caribbean to clean their bottoms, right? To get all the bottoms of their boats clean, so they'll be nice and fast and all that shit and safe to sail in. They can like clog any leaks and all that kind of thing. It says while they were there, they shared the treasure they had stolen so far and spent some time in a riotous manner of living, as is the custom of pirates. It's pretty badass already. All right. The latter end of May 1718, they sailed out, and being in want of provisions, they beat up for the Windward Islands and met with a Spanish sloop bound for Puerto Rico to the Havana, which they burnt. And they stowed the Spaniards in a boat and left them to get to their island by the light of their vessel. Pretty typical, right? So they didn't take these boats. This boat that they found had Spanish cops in it, basically, for all intents and purposes, Spanish soldiers. It was bound to Puerto Rico and then to Havana, Cuba. So they just burnt their ship, put them in their little boat, and sent them on their way. Told them to fuck off, find your way by the light of your vessel, which means a lantern. But steering between St. Christopher's and Antigua, they fell in with a brigantine and a sloop with the cargo that they wanted, from whom they got provisions for sea store. Okay, so now they fell in with a larger ship. It had like the food and drink that they were looking for, so they stole it. Sometime after this, standing to the northward in the track of the old England ships. Oh, okay, let me read that a different way. That's a weird way to put that. Sometime after this, standing to the northward in the track the old England ships take in their voyage to the American colonies, they took several ships and vessels. So they're just fucking pirating their guts out, dude. They're stealing boats left and right, raiding ships, which they plundered of what they thought fit and then let them pass. So they didn't burn them, though. They were just robbing them and letting them go. All right. So, but it says that they hit several ships on their way to the colonies. The latter end of August, Vane with his consort Yeats came off of South Carolina to Ipswich, one Coggershall commander, laden with logwood, which was thought convenient enough for their own business, and therefore ordered their prisoners to work and throw all the lading overboard. But when they had more than half cleared the ship, the whim changed, and then they would not have her. So Coggershall had his ship again, and he was suffered to pursue his voyage home. Okay, so they came across, when they got near South Carolina, they came across another boat, but it was filled with logwood. They were going to steal the boat, and they just started tossing this guy's fucking logwood into the ocean. But halfway through, it sounds like they decided it was too much work. And they said, fuck this. And they said, you can just have your boat, fuck off. But they had already thrown most of his cargo in the water, so he had to go home empty-handed. That shit sucks. In this cruise, the rover took several other ships and vessels, particularly a sloop from Barbados, Dill Master, a small ship from Antigua. Okay, some guy whose last name was Cock was the master of that ship. A sloop belonging to Curacao, Captain Richards, and a large brigantine from Captain Thompson that was from Guinea. The pirates plundered all of them and then let them go, putting... Oh, shit. Okay, I've talked about this before with Captain Morgan. Pirates fucking hated slavery. Right? Pirates literally fucking hated slavery. Most of them had been slaves themselves. Usually that's how they ended up in the Caribbean in the first place. They were sold by other Europeans, usually rich Europeans, right? Sometimes they were grabbed off the street just because they didn't have a job, or a cop saw them drunk somewhere, and they would literally just put them on a fucking ship and get them the fuck out of England, right? But a lot of times people were sold, or they put themselves into what was called indentured servitude. Now, that's not as popular as history likes to make nice of, right? History likes to make a little bit nicer out of the fucking most white people were slaves shit. But only some of them were indentured servants, right? And that's usually if you already came from like a middle class or upper class life and you either couldn't come up with the money to leave or you were trying to get the fuck out quick, and you would just say, listen, I'll work for you for 7 years if you give me my trip to wherever it is that I'm going, right? So for example, let's say Esquilman, right? Our very, very first author that we read through, right at the top of the series. John Esquilman, he left France in 1666 and arrived in Tortuga as an indentured servant, basically owned for 7 years by the French West India Company. However, when the French West India Company started going out of business in that part of the world, they sold him to another local slave master. You understand? So just because you were in indentured servitude and had a contract with a finite amount of time meant absolutely fucking jack shit once you actually got there. Because say you did 2 years under Captain Smith, right? Let's say you had a contract. It was an indentured servitude. It wasn't a slavery, right? Most of these people were literally sold into slavery and they had to escape to become pirates and buccaneers, okay, or hunters or whatever. But we're talking about the percentage that were indentured servants. Let's say that you had a 7-year contract as an indentured servant, and say you did 2 years already in Barbados under Captain Smith. Captain Smith fucking dies. Either the city, if he doesn't have anybody else related to him that they can give you to, if the city doesn't sell you to somebody else, right, then whoever in his family sells you off for money, your contract starts all over again. So now you've got 9 years. You understand? You already did 2. Your contract's going to fucking flip and you've got another 7 for this person. Let's say that person just doesn't like you or you get sick, just like John Esquilman did, right? This is another good example. Say you got really sick and you were dying and they sold you 7 more years. You get what I'm saying? You are fucked. You are 100% fucked. You are a slave. You live with the slaves. You are fed like a slave. You are treated like a slave. You are beat the fucking shit out of like a slave. John Esquilman, right, thinking all shit sweet, left France in 1666 on a beautiful boat. He wasn't in handcuffs. He wasn't slaved out. He wasn't beaten. He was fed well. When he got to fucking Tortuga, he was working for that company. He was housed well. He was fed well. Nobody beat the shit out of him. But as soon as they went out of business and they sold him to a local slave master, our boy almost fucking died. This motherfucker got the shit beat out of him on the daily, was barely fed food, was kept outdoors with animals, right? Sleeping in horrific conditions, never clothed, didn't have shoes. You understand what I'm saying to you? So these motherfuckers were slaves, a lot of these pirates and buccaneers. Don't get it twisted. And there was a lot of escaped slaves, and pirates would free slaves, which is what I'm getting ready to get to now. Like, remember, for anybody listening to the older episodes, Captain Morgan freed fucking hundreds of slaves. He did not have that shit. When they were walking around in Panama, remember this, for anybody that's been listening, when he went walking through Panama and he found the building where they sold the slaves at, like a courthouse, he immediately ordered it to be fucking burned to the motherfucking ground. You understand what I'm saying? So pirates didn't fucking like slavery. They did not like that shit at all. Most of them were slaves themselves. They also didn't like authority in general because some of them used to be sailors, and that was a whole different kind of horrific treatment. Being an actual sailor in the military for England, those dudes would literally bugger you, and there was nothing you could do about it. At least on a pirate ship, if you told somebody you got buggered, they'd hack that motherfucker into a million pieces and set their bones on fire. But yeah, so one of these shit, I said all of that to say this in our story. It makes sense that when Captain Vane and his crew were taking all of these boats, all of these ships, all up the coast of the colonies, when they got to South Carolina, they found a big ass ship, and one of them was filled with slaves from Africa, and they were like, oh, hell no, right? They're like, fuck this. Let me get to the part real quick. The pirates plundered them and let them go, but when they got to the brigantine, they took all of the black fellows out of the ship and put them aboard Yeats' vessel, and they gave them all the right to fucking either leave or become pirates. And it says that they all joined the pirates. So they just freed a gigantic fucking ship full of slaves. They were just like, hey, man, you guys can literally do whatever you want. You can go ashore if you want. I wouldn't do it here in South Carolina, right? You might want to wait till we get back down to the to the islands. It's going to be a better experience, but it's up to you. You're literally free, right? They told them you can do whatever you want. You can hang out, you can go to the islands, or you can join us and be pirates. And then apparently they all joined them. For Captain Vane, having always treated his consort of man with the utmost respect and assumed a superiority over Yeats and his small crew, and regarding the vessel already had 25 people upon it, made sure that it was victualed for their new guests. All right. Okay. Now, with all of them together who thought themselves as good pirates and as great of rogues as the best of them, they caballed together and resolved to take the very first opportunity to leave and accept of His Majesty's pardon. These motherfuckers. So that's how Yeats and his guys repay Vane. Right? Vane gives this fucking guy a sloop, makes him the captain of it in their fleet. He just gave them probably another 50 or 100 fucking guys that came off this slave ship. And now they're talking about, while they're in the colonies, they want to try and take their very first opportunity to go and get themselves pardoned. That is some fucking bullshit. Why didn't you just stay back in Nassau and take your pardon there, you fucking pussy? Right? Wow. That's bullshit. All right. Let me take a sip of my drink. Yeah, exactly, Aegon. Aegon says, MRE for real. Could you imagine having to row and row and row and row and getting the shit beat out of you and possibly violated by some sailors? F that. Yep. What's up, Foolish Flock? Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming through. But yeah, no doubt about it, man. Yeah, you hit the bone right on the head. Why this stupid thing? There we go. Touchy. Goddamn. All right. A day or two afterwards, the pirates lying off at anchor, Yeats in the evening slipped his cable and put his vessel under sail, standing into the shore, which when Vane saw, he was highly provoked and got his sloop under sail to chase his consort, who he plainly perceived had a mind to have no further affairs with him. Well, yeah, for sure, bro. This asshole's got one of your ships in your fleet. You gave it to him. You were awesome enough to make him captain of it, give him all kinds of guys, and now you fuckers are dipping out. Now, Vane doesn't know that they're going to go get a pardon, but it doesn't matter what the fuck they're doing. They're trying to leave in the middle of the night and dip off on them. They're like, and he's like, fuck you. Here I come. Right. Vane's brigantine sailing best, he quickly gained ground of Yeats and would certainly have come up with him had he had a little longer run for it. But just as he got over the bar, when Vane came within gunshot of him, he fired a broadside at his old friend, which did him no damage, and so took his leave. All right, Vane's like, fuck it, bro. You want to leave like that, bro? You're putting a whole broadside on me? Like, I'll catch up with you, dude. Right? He made it over the sandbar into like the shallower water. Vane's in a big ass brigantine that he just took, right? It was full of slaves. He can't really sail in that water. So when the other guy literally like started shooting cannons at him, he was like, all right, bro, I guess I'll catch up with you, man. Yeats came into North Adesto River about 10 leagues southward of Charlestown and sent an express to the governor to know if he and his comrades might have the benefit of His Majesty's pardon, and they would surrender themselves to his mercy with the sloops. Oh, and he's going to give them back the fucking slaves, this motherfucker.
Dude, the slaves should have killed them. They should have taken the boat over. They probably didn't know what the fuck was going on, though. They just joined these pirates. They think they're like all pirate brotherhood and stuff. I'm sure the pirates were just smiling at them, right? Telling them everything's cool. That's fucked up, man. All right. Permission was then granted to them, so they all came up and received certificates. And Captain Thompson, from whom the slaves were taken, had them restored to him for the use of his owners. Fuck all of you. Fuck you for turning bitch. Fuck you for running out on your fucking people. Fuck you for turning the slaves back over. Just fuck all of you. Vane cruised some time off of the bar in hopes to catch Yeats at his coming out again, but therein he was disappointed. However, he unfortunately for them took 2 ships from Charlestown bound home to England. It happened that just at this time, 2 sloops well manned and armed were equipped to go after a pirate, which the governor of South Carolina was informed lay then in Cape Fear River, cleaning their bottom. But Colonel Rhett, who commanded the sloops, meeting with one of the ships that Vane had plundered, going back over the bar for such necessaries as had been taken from her, and she giving the colonel an account of her being taken by the pirate Vane, and also that some of her men, while they were prisoners on board of him, had heard the pirates say that they should clean in one of the rivers to the southward. Okay. So Vane hung out there for a little while to see if that guy would end up coming back out, right? This dude that just split from him. He didn't know that they were taking pardons, but he quickly figured out they weren't coming back. So he just dipped off. He took 2 ships from Charlestown that were bound home to England, right? So they went back to pirating. They stole everything off of these ships, let them go. But when they left and they went back to shore, the governor of South Carolina had put together 2 sloops that were well manned and armed to go after looking for pirates in general. Well, when those 2 ships that Vane had just pirated, when they came back to shore, they gave the governor and those 2 ships that were going to go out looking for pirates, right? They basically told the cops, hey, when they were on our boat, we heard that some of the pirates talking about how they were going to go and clean their bottoms soon, right? They said, we're not exactly sure where they're going to go, but they said to the southward. In one of, like, where does it say exactly? It says, they were just going to clean in one of the rivers to the southward. So now the cops and the governor have an idea of approximately where Vane and his pirates are going to be. So the governor altered his first design, and instead of having the cops, right, the ships stand to the northward in pursuit of the pirate in the Cape Fear River, he had them turn to the south to go after Vane, who had ordered such reports to be given out on purpose to send any force that should come after him upon a wrong scent. For in reality, he stood away to the northward so that the pursuit proved to be the contrary way. So they did that shit on purpose. They threw the cops off, right? It says that the governor, hearing that shit, told the cops go south. They were originally going to go north, but he told the cops go south after Vane. These guys said they were just robbed by Vane, and they heard some of his pirates telling them that they were going to go south. So go that way. But it turns out that Vane, his guys had only talked that way around them to throw them the fuck off. They were just talking bullshit, and they ended up not finding them. They went south, and the pirates went north. Colonel Rhett speaking with this ship was the most unlucky thing that could have happened because it turned him out of the road, which in all probability would have brought him into the company of Vane, right? So they're just saying the cop is fucked now. The worst thing he ever did was listen to that ship because it sent him in the wrong direction. And if he would have gone north, he probably would have run into him, right? As well as one of the other pirates that he went after. And so they might have been both destroyed. Whereas by the colonel's going a different way, he not only lost the opportunity of meeting with Vane, but if the other had not been infatuated to lie 6 weeks together at Cape Fear, he would have missed of him likewise. However, the colonel, having searched the rivers and inlets as directed for several days without success, at length sailed in prosecution of his first design and headed north. And then he did meet with the pirate accordingly, whom he fought and took, as has been before spoken of in the history of Major Bonnet. Right, we didn't cover that one yet, but we know that Bonnet is the guy. Remember, Blackbeard was sailing up from Jamaica. He was also heading to the Carolinas, right? He was going to North Carolina. He ran into another ship that had a bunch of pirates on it that he knew, but the captain was this guy named Stead Bonnet. And at first, Blackbeard welcomed Stead Bonnet and his crew to be part of their fleet, but then he quickly found out who Stead Bonnet was, which was a fucking rich guy playing pirate, right? It was a rich guy that had read all these books about piracy and read all the newspapers of the day and heard all the reports of people like Blackbeard and Vane, right? And all these people in Nassau, and he wanted to be one bad. So, and he hated his fucking wife. So he decided to sell off part of his business, buy a ship, hire a crew, and just go out fucking pirating. Now, he should have, let's be real, he should have, in all reality, actually joined up with the fucking pirate kingdom, right? He should have gone to Tortuga or Port Royal or Nassau and actually, like, got put on paper. You understand what I'm saying? Like, he should have made sure people knew who he was. But he just went sailing out. He did run into Blackbeard. He's like, oh, shit, this is awesome. I met Blackbeard, and now I'm part of his fleet. And then Blackbeard found out who he was and that he didn't know anything about sailing, didn't know anything about ships, knew a fuck all about the ocean, didn't know anything about managing guys or, you know, taking ships. And Blackbeard pulled him aside and said, listen, I'm taking your fucking boat from you. I'm putting Israel Hands, my guy, on your boat to be the captain of that boat. But I could kill you, right? I could steal your shit and put you on shore, but I know you really want to be a pirate. I'm going to be cool. And I'm going to let you hang out with us, and I'm going to let you play pirate. All you have to do is hang out. You'll get your share of any treasure we take. You can live the fucking pirate life. You can hang out with the boys, right? When we make shore, you can hang out in the bars with these guys and all that stuff. You can call yourself part of the crew, but you are not a fucking captain, and a captain you will not be. Well, after a few days, Stead Bonnet started showing his ass and acting like a child, stomping around with his arms crossed and pouting and shit all over Blackbeard's ship because he didn't want to be sitting in his room. He wanted to be captain of a ship. And Blackbeard finally said, listen, bro, you're fucking annoying me. And then he did put him on shore. Now, if you remember, Blackbeard had set a dozen guys off on this little spit of sand out in the ocean when he was ditching a bunch of his guys. A couple days later, this same Stead Bonnet is the guy that cruised by and picked them up because he would remember, he's the rich guy. He sold off a bunch of shit so he could be a pirate. When Blackbeard put him on shore and kicked him off the team, the very first thing Stead Bonnet did was go down, get some of his own goddamn money out of the bank, and he bought another ship and hired another crew, right? He was like, I'm going to be a pirate. Fuck Blackbeard. And he went out and he went sailing again. And then he came across part of Blackbeard's crew who was stranded on a little sandbar in the ocean. There wasn't a bush there, not a tree, no animals. It said so in the story. And of course, those guys were like, fuck yes, Stead Bonnet, we will totally join your crew, right? And they got on the ship with him. Well, now they're telling us here that these cops that were after Vane, right? Remember, they got told, go south. But that was wrong. Vane had gone north. The cops went south. They didn't find shit. So now they've turned north. Well, on their way going north, who do they run across and arrest? But Stead Bonnet and his crew and the remaining crew of Blackbeard. And we know what happened to the crew from Blackbeard, right? And if you don't, listen to last week's episode. But so these cops just arrested fucking Stead Bonnet, okay? Captain Vane went into an inlet to the northward where he met with Blackbeard. Okay, so now this is where Captain Vane and Blackbeard meet. Now these guys, let's just read it. Okay, so he went up to the northward, Vane did, and he just ran into Blackbeard, Captain Teach. Okay, so Captain Vane went into an inlet to the northward where he met with Captain Teach, otherwise called Blackbeard, whom he saluted when he found out who he was, with his great guns loaded with shot, as is the custom among pirates when they meet or see each other. They are fired wide or up into the air to be of no danger. Blackbeard answered the salute in the same manner, and mutual civilities passed for some days, when about the beginning of October, Vane took leave and sailed further to the north. On the 23rd of October, off of Long Island, Captain Vane took a small brigantine bound from Jamaica to Salem, in New England, John Shattuck master. He also took a little sloop that actually was shooting rifles at their brigantine. So they just fucking shot a cannon at it and sunk it. From there, they resolved on a cruise between Cape May and Cape Nicholas, where they spent some time without seeking or speaking with any other vessel, till the latter end of November. Then they fell upon a ship, which was expected would have struck as soon as their black colors were hoisted, but instead of that, she discharged a broadside upon the pirate and hoisted their colors, which showed her to be a French man-of-war. Vane desired to have nothing further to say to her, but trimmed his sails and stood away from the Frenchman. But Monsieur, having a mind to be better informed who he was, set all of his sails and crowded after him. So Captain Vane was taking boats, went for a good long while without finding one, sees a big ship and says, let's go take that. Raised their pirate colors, right? So that they would, whoever these people would surrender. But instead of these people surrendering, they put their fucking flag up, which meant it's on, right? If you take your flag down, it means you surrender. It means you're cutting your colors down, right? You're surrendering. But these fuckers raised their flag. So they were like, what's up? And that's when Captain Vane realized it was a French man-of-war, it was a fucking warship. And he was like, oh, okay, let's not do this today, right? And he backs off. But now the French ship is like, hang on, bro. No. You were chasing us. We want to know who the fuck you are. So they set all of their sails and they chased after them. During this chase, the pirates were divided in their resolutions of what to do. Vane, the captain, was for making off as fast as they could, alleging the man-of-war was too strong to cope with. But one John Rackham, who was an officer on Captain Vane's ship that had a kind of a check upon the captain, rose up in defense of a contrary opinion, saying that though she had more guns and a greater weight of metal, they might board her, and then the best boys would carry the day. Rackham was well seconded, and the majority was for boarding, but Vane urged that it was too rash and too desperate an enterprise, the man-of-war appearing to be twice their force, and that their brigantine might be sunk by her before they could even reach her to board her. The mate, one Robert Deal, was of Vane's opinion, as were about 15 more, but all the rest joined with Rackham, who was their quartermaster. Okay, so remember, John Rackham, also called Jack, right? John and Jack, especially back in the day, were like interchangeable. So some people have heard of Jack Rackham. Some people have heard it's the same guy. John Rackham, Jack Rackham, either way, Rackham is Vane's quartermaster on his ship, right? And on a ship, remember, a quartermaster is the divider between the administration and the crew. So if the crew gets together and has to do a vote, right, or if the crew has an opinion or has a concern, they bring it to their quartermaster so that one guy can then walk up to the captain, right, and say, hey, this is what's going on, right? If it's bad enough, the quartermaster would say, you're fucking out, right? We're not going to kill you, but you have to get the fuck off the boat, or You have to be willing to be subservient to whoever it is that we pick as our next captain. You're fucking up. We don't like your style. Or the quartermaster in this case could call a vote amongst the men if he disagreed with the captain, right? He could be like, I don't like that, and I think that the men should vote. And in this case, Captain Vane's like, yo, that's a fucking French warship. They've got mad cannon. It's a huge fucking ship, right? I didn't know they had all that shit on board until they raised their flags and opened their gun ports. We thought that was a ship we were going to take and get some money off of, maybe a passenger ship or something. He's like, no, bro. He's like, these motherfuckers are ready to have at it. And when we put our pirate colors down and showed that we were submitting, they still chased after us. He's like, I'm telling you, bro, this is a bad idea. That means they've got some shit. They've got some soldiers. They're going to blow us the fuck out of the water, bro. Literally going to blow us out of the water. And Rackham says, well, hold on. If we can get up next to that ship and we can board it, then the best men will win the day. He's like, dude, we're still badass pirates, right? He's like, we are a badass pirate crew. We're not to be fucked with. We could take these guys. Fuck them. All we have to do is get on the ship. And Captain Vane says to him again, yeah, that's if you can get on the ship, right? Captain Vane's like, dude, what happens if we get up next to her and she just fucking gives us a broadside and sinks our brigantine, puts us at the bottom of the ocean, right? Kills us all before we have a chance to board the fucking thing. So 16 of the crew side with Vane, right? The rest of the crew sided with Rackham, the quartermaster. At length, the captain made use of his power to determine this dispute, which in these cases is absolute and uncontrollable by their own laws, in that the captain has ultimate say in fighting, chasing, or being chased by the laws of the Brethren of the Coast set down, right, dozens of years beforehand. Their pirate law says that, while yes, everybody has a vote, in times of fighting, chasing, or being chased, the captain has absolute control and the final decision in what's to be done. Okay, so in all other matters whatsoever, he is governed by a majority. But in cases of fighting, chasing, or being chased, he has the final say. So the brigantine, having the heels, as they term it, of the French, man, she came clear off. All right. So Vane was like, fuck that, bro. We just need to hopefully outrun this ship. And it looks like that's what happened. But the next day, the captain's behavior was obliged to stand the test of a vote, and a resolution passed against his honor and dignity, branding him with the name of coward, deposing him from the command, and turning him out of the company. So think about that shit, right? The majority of the men voted to go after the French ship and try and board it and take whatever it had on it. Captain Vane used his absolute power in times of fighting, chasing, or being chased to disagree with that and say, no, we're not going to do that. He went against the majority. So they ran from the ship and they got away. He got his way. But the very next fucking day, the men held a vote and voted him out as captain and branded him as a coward. That's fucked up. Yep. It says that turning him out of the company with marks of infamy, and with him went all those who did not vote for boarding the French man of war. So they branded all the other guys that were on his side as cowards as well. They had with them a small sloop that had been taken by them some time before, which they gave to Vane and the discarded members, right? So now they're kicking them off the fucking ship. They're putting them in a sloop and sending them off on their own. They just cut ties with Captain Vane and the people that voted with him. It's intense, man. That shit is fucked up. They're on their own. They're on their own. All right. So we'll start from the top of that one again. It says they had with them a small sloop that had been taken by them some time before, which they gave to Vane and the discarded members. and that they might be in a condition to provide for themselves by their own honest endeavors, they let them have a sufficient quantity of provisions and ammunition along with them. John Rackham was then voted captain of the brigantine and given Vane's room, and proceeded towards the Caribbean islands, where we must leave him for now till we have finished our story of Charles Vane. So put a check in that. Remember, I told you after Vane's story, we'll go into Rackham's story. That's the very next one we're going to do. And I did that for a reason, for this reason, because the story of John Rackham, starts with the story of Charles Vane, right? And remember that Charles Vane and his crew, including Jack Rackham, were on the beach in Nassau when Woodes Rogers showed up. They were the only ones that did not take the pardon. They all took off together, right? Jack Rackham as Charles Vane's quartermaster. They all took off on a ship together, set fire to another ship in the harbor, raised their fucking pirate flag high, right? They hoisted their colors high, and they sailed out of that harbor with their middle fingers in the air. And they even shot at Woodes Rogers and the men of war as they were on their way out, right? Now, Jack Rackham is captain of Charles Vane's ship. Charles Vane was just deposed as captain and given the mark of a coward by his crew because he refused to chase after the French man of war. They've put him in a little sloop, gave him some food, gave him some shot, some gunpowder, and just said, fuck off. Right? So put a pin in that. Jack Rackham, is now captain of Charles Vane's ship, and he is now on his way back to the Caribbean islands. Okay, we're going to leave him there for right now. The sloop with Charles Vane and his dozen or so guys sailed for the Bay of Honduras, and Vane and his crew put her into as good a condition as they could, by the way, to follow the old trade, right? So they're not done being pirates. He's just not captain of that ship anymore, but they're still all, they didn't want to go, and they thought they were going to die if they chased that French ship. So they didn't quit being pirates just because they got deposed from that specific crew. They're just starting their own crew. So the sloop Charles Vane's on sailed for the Bay of Honduras with about a dozen guys. Vane and his crew put her into as good a condition as they could, by the way, to follow the old trade. They cruised 2 or 3 days off the northwest part of Jamaica and took a sloop and 2 patiegas, like 2 smaller boats. So they took a sloop and 2 small boats, and all the men entered with them. The sloop they kept, and Robert Deal went captain of her. On the 16th of December, the 2 sloops came into the bay, where they found only one at an anchor, called the Pearl of Jamaica. Captain Charles Rowling, master, who got under sail at the sight of them, but the pirate sloops coming at her and coming near Rowling and showing no colors, he gave them a gun or 2, whereupon they hoisted the black flag and fired 3 guns each at the Pearl. The Pearl struck their colors, and the pirates took possession and carried her away to a small island, and there they cleaned their bottoms, meeting in the way with another sloop from Jamaica, Captain Walden, commander, going down to the bay, which they also stole and made a prize of. This dude has taken more ships so far, right? I mean, this dude's taken like way more ships than Blackbeard did. Tons more ships than Blackbeard did. Blackbeard's whole run was very, very short, if you remember, right? The timeline of that was fairly short. He was just such a huge brand and such a wild fucking story and such a wild tale that it stuck throughout history. He was just a really bizarre guy. But Charles Vane, this is a pirate's pirate right here, right? This guy, you don't stop him. He didn't run away. He's still pirating. He's just taking mad boats on his own, and he had to start over again in a little sloop filled with a dozen guys, right? Then they took a couple more small boats. Now they've just taken another sloop. Now they're going to an island to get their shit all cleaned up. Yeah. So in February, Vane sailed from Barnaco in order for the cruise. But some days after he was out, a violent tornado overtook him, which separated him from his other two boats. And after 2 days of distress, saved to pieces, and most of her men drowned. Dude, so they're saying tornado. It's a fucking hurricane, right? So they got caught in a fucking hurricane in a little sloop. They got separated from their people. He got thrown onto a small uninhabited island in fucking 1718, right? And the little boat he was in, when it got thrown onto this small uninhabited island, it was dashed to pieces, and most of the men that were in there with him drowned. Vane himself was saved, but reduced to great straits for want of all necessities, having no opportunity to get any single thing from the wreck. He lived on that uninhabited island alone for some weeks and was subsisted chiefly by fish and coconuts. That's fucking crazy. Then slowly, fishermen and people that caught turtles slowly started to show up to the island, but they wouldn't fuck with him. Right? It says that it took a fucking long while after the storm for the fishermen and the turtlemen to come back out and start hitting these small islands to go fishing and catch turtles. But nobody would fuck with him. They wouldn't talk to him. They wouldn't give him the time of day. They wouldn't give him a ride off the island. They just told him to fuck off. So while Vane was upon this island, a ship put in from Jamaica for water, the captain of which was one Holford, an old buccaneer, happened to be Vane's acquaintance. He thought this a good opportunity to get off of this godforsaken island, and accordingly applied to his old friend. But his old friend absolutely refused him, saying to him, "Charles, I cannot trust you aboard my ship unless I carry you as a prisoner, for I shall have you caballing with my men, knock me on the head, and run away with my ship a pirating." So, right? So he's like, bro, you're a fucking dude. You're Charles Vane. You have no boat. All your people are gone. If I bring you on my ship, you're going to turn all my guys on me. You're going to knock me in my fucking head, kill me probably, take my ship, and go out pirating. He's like, there's no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You're not stepping foot on my boat. Vane made all the protestations of honor in the world to him, but it seems Captain Holford was too intimately acquainted with him to repose any confidence whatsoever at all in his words or oaths. He told him he might easily find a way to get off the island if he had a mind to it. "I am now going down the bay," says he, "and shall return here soon in about a month. And if I find you upon the island when I come back, and you're still here in a month, I'll carry you to Jamaica, but you should know that if I take you there, they're going to hang you." Dude. Vane says, "Are there not fishermen's dories upon the beach? Can't you take one of them?" Right? So, I'm sorry, that's what Holford said to Vane. Vane says, "Well, then there's no way I can get away." Right? The dude tells him, he says, I'm not taking you on my ship. So I'm going to fucking leave. I've got business to do. I'll be back this way in a month. If you're still fucking stuck here and haven't figured out a way to get off of this off of this island in a month, then I will take you back to Jamaica, but you should know that when you get there, they're going to hang you. And Vane says to him, "Well, then I'm fucked either way." Right? He says, "Well, then what am I supposed to do?" He says, "Which way can I possibly get away then?" And the Captain Holford says to him, "Well, dude, you're Vane, right? You're a thief. You're a pirate." He goes, "Are there not little fishermen's boats on the beach? Can't you just go and steal one of those?" "What," says Vane, "would you have me steal a small itty-bitty boat to go out into the ocean then? Do you make it a matter of conscience?" Said Holford, to steal a small boat when you have been a common robber and pirate, stealing ships and cargoes and plundering all mankind that fell in your way throughout your whole entire life? That's fucking hilarious. He goes, stay here and be damned if you want, and if you're so squeamish about going out into the ocean in a small boat. But if I put you on my boat and take you back to Jamaica with me, they're going to fucking kill you. So you should probably figure it out, right? He goes, are you so proud, right? He goes, do you have such a matter of conscience that you wouldn't steal a little boat? Are you not a badass? Are you too scared and squeamish of the ocean that you won't give a try to stealing a little boat to get the fuck off of this little island that you can't seem to get off of? He goes, if I were you, I would just do the hard thing and get it the fuck over with, right? So after Captain Halford's departure, another ship put into the same island in her way home for water, none of whose company knew Vane. He easily passed upon them for just any other guy, and so was shipped for the voyage. One would be apt to think that Vane was now pretty safe and likely to escape the fate which his crimes had merited. But here a cross accident happened that ruined everything. Halford, returning from the bay, was met by this ship, the captains also being very well acquainted together. Halford was now invited to dine aboard, which he did, and as he passed along to the cabin, he chanced to cast his eye down into the hold, and he saw Charles Vane at work. And then he fucking sells to this motherfucker. So he immediately spoke to the captain saying, do you know who you have on board your ship? He says, why? Says he, I have shipped a man at such an island who was cast away in a trading sloop. He seems to be a brisk hand, I tell you. He's a good worker, says Captain. Yeah, and Captain Halford says, I tell you, that's fucking pirate Charles Vane. He goes, he's a notorious pirate. He goes, if it is him, replies the other, I won't keep him. Why then, says Halford, I'll send and take him aboard and surrender him at Jamaica for money. His boy's selling him out. This dude should be found. Somebody needs a time machine. They need to go back and chop this Captain Halford's fucking prick off, stick it in his mouth, throw him in the street. He just turned on his fucking boy. He wouldn't. I mean, I understand the first part, right? Where he's like, you know, he pulls up on the island. He sees his old friend that he used to be pirating with, but he came from Nassau, which means he took a pardon, right? This dude bit his bitch made. He fucking pussied out. So he's pardoned. He's doing legitimate business. He pulls up on this little uninhabited island to try and get some water to his ship. And he sees his old pirate buddy, Charles Vane, but he knows Charles Vane's a bad fucking dude, right? He's a good, solid pirate captain. He was one of the few people in Nassau that refused to take the pardon. This guy has taken dozens of ships. Let's be real. This guy has pirated his fucking guts out since he left in that very beginning of the story. He might have been put out by some guys that were playing tough guy, but let's be real. He was trying to be a captain that kept everybody alive, right? He's like, dude, that's a French man of war. They've got mad fucking cannon. If we get close to it, it's going to broadside us and sink us to the ocean, right? You got all these tough guys on the boats like, oh, yeah, well, if we could board, and their quartermasters, you know, getting them going and leading them on. Charles Vane has the final call. He says, listen, man, it's not a smart idea. I don't want to end up at the bottom of the ocean today, right? I don't want to be hanging out in Davy Jones' locker. I'm going to use my absolute veto power as a captain in this case and say, no, we're not going after this boat because we're going to end up dead. You know, the next day, all the tough guys on the ship, they were probably wrong, voted him out as captain, and he got fucked, right? He went in a little sloop, started over, and still stole mad boats. He made it all the way the fuck back to Jamaica from goddamn near Long Island, right? Gets caught in a hurricane, gets tossed on an uninhabited island in the Caribbean. When they got tossed on the beach, it destroyed the boat he was on, drowned and killed all the other guys. He's the only one that lived through it. He's on this little island. He sees one of his guys, right, from back in the day. That guy's taking a pardon. He sees Vane. He goes, man, no, dude. I know who you are, right? I'm not putting you on my ship. If I put you on my ship, you're probably going to turn my guys pirate. They're probably going to kill me, and then you're going to be captain of my ship, and you're going to go out of pirating. he tells him, he says, I'm leaving to go on business. I'm going to sail out of here. I'll be back this way in a month. If you're still here and you really want to leave that bad, I will pick you up. But if I take you to Jamaica, they're going to fucking kill you, bro. Now that should have been Captain Vane's first like antenna raising moment, right? First red flag is that this guy could have put him anywhere he wanted. He didn't have to take him to fucking Jamaica, but I think that was that guy's way of telling him, like, I'm going to sell you for money, right? Like, I've got a pardon. I'm not going to play games. I'm just going to turn you in. That should have been what Captain Vane heard when that guy said, I'm going to take you back to Jamaica with me, but you should know they're going to hang you. He should have been like, okay, you're a fucking snitch. Fuck off. Get away from me. And he should have taken one of those little boats like the guy told him. The guy said, listen, man, if you really want off this fucking boat, you don't want to get hung and you still want to be a pirate, I'm not trying to steal you right now. He's like, go down there to one of those small fisher boats and row your fucking happy ass off of this island and go out and work your way up, right? He's like, you could do that. And Vane says to him, bro, we're supposed to be friends. You would really have me go get in one of those little itty bitty boats? I'm probably going to end up dead if I fucking row that thing into the open ocean, right? He's like, what the fuck, man? What am I supposed to take in a little boat? And the guy tells him, hey, bro, I don't know what to tell you. He says, if you're too squeamish for the ocean, you don't think yourself good enough a captain, fucking stay here and rot, right? I'll be back in a month. He goes, or if it's about your conscience, just remind yourself who you are and of all the ship you've stolen and all the people you've killed, right? But he was right. That is what Vane should have done. Vane should have taken one of those little fishing boats, rowed his ass to the next island where at least it wasn't uninhabited. There was people there and he could hang out or hide or whatever to still have access to food and clothes and maybe steal a ship off the dock like Pirates of the Caribbean style, right? But instead, he waits for the next ship to come in, which was just a couple of days, which meant Halford. He's sailing. He's only right out in the bay, right? He's not gone. The people that show up on this new ship, they don't know him. So they're like, oh, fuck, bro, that sucks. You got wrecked here during that hurricane? That's fucked up, man. Yeah, we can't leave you here. We'll give you a job, no doubt, right? Captain's a good guy. Crews are cool. They're like, hey, man, come on our boat. We'll give you a job. We'll feed you. No problem at all, dude. We'll drop you off someplace wherever the fuck you want to go. That sucks you were shipwrecked, man. So they pull out into the bay. But Captain Halford is still out there. And this captain knows fucking Captain Halford. So he stops next to his boat and goes, hey, my dude, what's up? You want to come over for dinner before we go our separate ways? Captain Halford says, bet. And he comes on the ship. And when he's walking past the cabin, he looks down in the hold and he sees Captain Vane. Now, this motherfucker, if he was actually his friend, he would have kept his goddamn mouth shut right then. He just smiled at his old friend, been like, yeah, right on, dude. You finally got yourself away out of here. Good for you, right? That's what you should have done as a man, you fucking pathetic cunt. This guy's a piece of shit, this Holford guy. Instead of just thinking, like, smiling at his buddy and giving him a nod, right? And being like, hey, man, I'm glad to see you got yourself out of that situation, right? Good stuff, bro. Instead, he fucking tells this other captain, yo, you've got a notorious pirate captain in your hold. You got to get him the fuck off your ship. Now, the other guy goes, oh, well, dude, that's just a guy that we picked up. I thought he was a guy that was a shipwreck victim. You know what I mean? Like I was giving him a ride someplace. This dude goes, no. That's Captain Charles Vane. So the dude says to Captain Halford, well, I don't want him on my fucking boat. Get him the fuck out of here. And Captain Halford goes, I'll take him. Took him fucking prisoner. Took him back to Jamaica. Sold Captain Vane, right, to the hands of justice. At which place he was then tried, convicted, and executed. They fucking hung Captain Vane. And they hung him, they hung him in the fucking town square. Now remember, I told you, and anybody continues listening to these episodes, when we get into the deep dives of these places, when we get to Nassau, and we tell the whole story of how all of this unfolds, you're going to remember me telling you now, Captain Vane was a fucking martyr for the Pirate Kingdom. Okay? He was the captain of the only crew that did not take the pardon. They fucking ran. They took off. They set fire to some shit. They hoisted their colors high, just like our theme song in the beginning of every show we do, right? Our intro song. They hoisted their fucking pirate colors high. They even shot their cannons at the fucking cops, right? Now, betrayed by one of his old pirate colleagues. He's fucking betrayed by the dude. He snitches him out after he was shipwrecked. The guy just survived being shipwrecked. His old friend, Mr. Holier Than Thou Holford, that's what I'm going to call him, this fucking piece of shit, this rat prick fuck. Holier Than Thou Holford says, oh, well, I've got my pardon. I'm better than you. You're a fucking dirty fucking pirate. You're a killer. I have to turn you into the law for money. So he does that, and Woodes Rogers hangs him in the fucking town square in front of all of the old salty buccaneers, in front of all of the pirates, in front of everybody, right? Now, I say pirates, I mean pirates that have since taken a pardon, but these motherfuckers are still pirates, and this is the thing that gets everybody murmuring again. When Captain Vane gets hung in the square, they're all literally fucking sick over it, right? They're sick over it. They can't believe they've pardoned themselves. They are now this is a reminder. Captain Vane hanging there in the town square is a total reminder to all of the people that have taken this pardon of why they fucking hated England in the first goddamn place, right? This whole time they've been finding out what a piece of human garbage, what a piece of subhuman garbage, or what subhuman garbage Woodes Rogers is, right? Woodes Rogers was a fuckboy. This dude was an absolutely terrible human being, an absolutely hypocritical piece of garbage, this guy. And he was running everything like shit, treating everybody like shit, going back on his word over and over and over and over again, breaking every promise he made. And the people there were already tired of this motherfucker. They were basically getting slaved out to the local plantations, these pirates, right? Woodes Rogers was like, oh, we got to make sure they have all this work, and fucking we're just going to give all you pirates to the people that have money, and we're going to work you to death, next to the slaves they brought from Africa, because you're no better, is what he would tell them, right? As if there was anything wrong with the fucking people from Africa in the first place. But that tells you where Woodes Rogers' mind was at, right? Fuck Woodes Rogers. So this is the moment. This is the moment when Charles Vane gets hung in the square, the town square of Nassau. This is the moment when all of those people, all of those pirates that had taken a pardon start going, yo, I think I made the wrong decision. Right? They're like, dude, I think I want to go back to being Team Pirate. Right? I think that we should make Nassau the hashtag Pirate Kingdom again. I think we should probably think about figuring out a way to get England the fuck out of our kingdom. Remember, Nassau was created and kept by the pirates for a long time. I mean, now, yes, did England technically, quote unquote, create a place there? Yes, but then it was quickly taken. England fought with back and forth with them for a while. They fought with Mansvelt. They fought in the time of Morgan, right, with all them people. But this was the first big time that England tried. Like Spain had come through there before and completely ravaged Nassau, right? Because they were tired of the pirates stealing from them. But that wasn't England. And that was like, the Spanish going after people that were robbing them. They didn't want Nassau or care about Nassau. When they came through there tearing ass, they were just trying to kill off the fucking pirates. Were they probably trying to end some commerce there in a part of the world that they claimed as their own? Sure. But it had mostly to do with killing off the pirates. But this was the first major time in this part, after 1700, right? Really in about 50 years or 60 years, this was the first time that England showed up and tried to put their foot down and reclaim this place. Before that, it was made and kept by the fucking pirates. It was a pirate kingdom. Don't get it fucked up. So now all these people that had turned on Vane, that turned on Rackham, that turned on their homeboys and took that pardon, they're now watching the most badass pirate that they knew, the most stand-up fucking guy they knew, the one guy that gave the finger to Woodes Rogers and shot at him leaving the harbor to go out of pirating with their fucking colors high. They're watching this guy swing while all the soldiers just fucking laugh and smile and fuck with this guy. And then they put him in a fucking gibbet for like a week and just let his corpse rot in the fucking square and stink and get pecked at by birds and eaten by bugs and shit like that in front of all of the people. I mean, this was it. He was a martyr. He was one of the turning points in that whole war, and we're going to get to all of that. So he was sold into the hands of justice by a turncoat piece of garbage named holier-than-thou Captain Holford. He was tried, convicted, and executed, hung in the square, and as was some time before Vane's consort, Robert Deal, they found him and brought him there in a man of war and hung him too. They hung him on the beach, which is usually where they hung people. Even in England, they would hang you out on the fucking beach of the River Thames or on the coast, like right there. And then they'd put your body in a gibbet on the river. Captain Vane was put in the town square and hung there on purpose. They had to build a gallows for that purpose. And that's, again, another one of the, he was like Woodes Rogers telling all of those people, fuck you. And they took it as a big fuck you. And he ended up paying for that shit later, big time. And that's the end of the story of Captain Vane. It's pretty intense. So let's take a quick break. Smoke them if you got them. I'm going to pause this for just a moment while I go and grab a cigarette, and then I will be right back. We'll chat a little bit before we start our tale of Captain Jack Rackham. So give me just a moment, and I'll be right back. Matter of fact, you know what? I will do this.
The king and his men stole the queen from her bed and bound her in her bones. The seas be ours, and by the powers where we will we roam. Yo ho, all hands.
There we go. That'll work.
Hoist the colors high. Heave ho.
We'll put that on in honor of Charles Vane for hoisting his colors high on the way out of that harbor, shooting at the fucking piece of garbage Woodes Rogers, man. The only one to give him the finger. So that's in honor of him, I suppose. Why not? He deserved it, man.
And some are alive, and others sail on the sea.
And then we'll continue on with Captain Jack Rackham here shortly. I'm just grabbing a smoke real quick. Like I said, smoke them if you got them. Go to the bathroom, do what you got to do here for a few minutes, get your cup of drink, and then we'll settle back in here in just a few. We'll get back to it with Captain Rackham.
All hands, hoist the colors high.
I love that story. I love that story. He is one of my favorite pirates, man, Charles Vane. It's a wild ride. That's why I love that story so much. It's such a wild ride he goes on. He even hangs out with Blackbeard in like some weird covert little cove off of North Carolina. They just had like a big pirate, like a pirate camp for a while and hung out drinking and doing whatever the fuck they wanted. Yeah, very cool. And think about that, making it by yourself with just like a dozen guys in a little sloop from some bay where you were abandoned up near Long Island, making it all the way back down to the Bahamas, man. Yeah. Actually being able to take other boats on your way. That guy just went right back to pirating.
We call to all, pay heed, squall and turn yourself toward home.
Yeah, intermission time. That's a good name for it. Foolish flock. Aegon says, reminds me of like an old Norse song. Yeah, I love this song. It's a great pirating tune.
Hoist the colors high. Heave-ho.
Great pirating tune.
Thieves and beggars, never shall we die.
Yeah, then we'll jump into Jack Rackham, who was the quartermaster for Captain Vane. He just took over Captain Vane's ship. Remember, we left him. Right after he had Vane deposed up near Long Island, he started his way back to the Caribbean islands too. So we'll see where we pick up with his story. Damn it, man. He says it reminded me of Aragorn singing. What, from like Lord of the Rings or from something else? Aragorn? That sounds like a name from Lord of the Rings. Maybe I'm mistaking it. But yeah, it has like a really cool like ghost ship kind of a feel to it. That's the way I always thought about it. Kind of like a cool like ghost ship. Like when you see the second Pirates of the Caribbean, they're all, you know, all those people, they turn to ghosts by the moonlight and shit like that. That's what it reminds me of. Hang on one second. All right, I got to grab another drink real quick, and then we'll jump into our next story. So just hang tight with me for a few, everybody, and we will get right back into it. Oh, Mandy says that is who she was. Aragorn. Yeah, okay, from Lord of the Rings, right. Gotcha. All right, let me grab this drink real quick. Hang on. I always like that part in, it's not Lord of the Rings, though. It's The Hobbit, when all the dwarves are singing together in Bilbo's living room after they eat dinner. That shit's awesome. I like the Hobbit movies just like a little bit more than I like the Lord of the Rings movie. I like all of them. I've watched all of them several times. I've watched all of like the extended director's cuts and all that kind of stuff that have a lot of the scenes that the commercial release didn't have, they're great. Those extended versions are awesome. Especially if you've read the books and you're really into them, which I am. I've read all of them too. Even the similar, what is it? Silmarillion. That's what it is. The Silmarillion. I've read that too. But yeah, the extended cuts have a lot of shit from the books. If you're into the books and you watch the commercial versions, you're like, wait a minute, where's this or where's that? Go and watch the extended versions. They'll have those in there. But I like the Hobbit movies just a little bit more than the Lord of the Rings movies. What does it say? Foolish Flock says, I've never watched any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies before. I feel I should see. Oh, dude, you've got. They're fucking awesome. They are awesome, dude. They do such a good job. I mean, the writing is great. The acting is great. But they do an amazing fucking job, dude, with like all of the little villages and the towns, like Port Royal, the soldiers, the ships, the guns, all of that. And plus there's like a lot of great, like really cool adventure and like mysterious, like magical tinges to all of it. You know, like the old pirate superstitions become real, like the black spot and the kraken. All really, really, really good movies, man. And then they tie in things that are true from history also into those movies, which is really, really cool. Like, I think the one, it's called At World's End. It might be number 3. They go sailing down like into like Antarctica, and just like Captain Cook describes in his journals, right? If you read I know I read all this crazy nerdy shit, but like, if you go back and you read Captain Cook's journals, he talks about when they made it, that's like the furthest south any ship had gone that they knew of on record. It was so cold that the sails froze in place, right? At like the blown out from the wind, but frozen in place, right? And the ropes were covered in ice and frozen. None of the sailors were equipped to be in weather like that. Nobody had fucking jackets and, you know, like underclothes and all that kind of stuff. So people's toes were breaking off. Their fingers were breaking off, right? Think about that shit. Literally snapping off. And they put that in that Pirates of the Caribbean movie At World's End, when they go sailing through the Antarctic and they're going towards this tunnel that they have to reach on a map. It's so fucking cold that their sails are frozen in place. The ropes are covered in ice. There's people like that break their fucking toes off and shit. It's exactly like Captain Cook describes. It's very cool. Whoever did that knew exactly what they were doing. Yeah, dude, Foolish Vlog, if you're into pirate history and you're into pirate themed things and stuff, I mean, you're going to love those movies, man. Yeah, you're going to love them. Damn it, Mandy says, I've got to circle back and read The Hobbit. Oh, for sure. Those are amazing books. Even if you don't like reading books, there's audio books, but those stories are amazing. I still remember when I was in elementary school, the first time I read The Hobbit, and I still remember like reading that first little bit, you know, about how there was a hobbit in a hole in the ground, and not just, you know, some gross hole filled with bugs and worms and all this stuff, but a real home. You know, like I remember that triggering my imagination when I was in elementary school and being like super into it immediately, you know, and reading through all of those. And like I said, I've even read the Silmarillion, which is like all of the histories, and it's pretty nerdy, pretty geeky stuff. But if you're into it, it's just one of those things that you're going to have to get into for the deep dive, you know? Yeah, people in here going, I'm a nerd. Hashtag nerds unite. Yeah, no doubt. Excuse me, I'm still getting over this fucking cold. Yeah, oh, that's cool. Foolish Vlog says I'll check them out soon. Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, it was terrible, Foolish Vlog. Fingers and toes just snapping off. Literally, yeah. I mean, Captain Cook's journals are fucking amazing. One of the most amazing things I've ever read, ever, is Captain Cook when they pull up on Tahiti for the very first time, and the small amount of time that they spend there. That story is off the fucking chain. It is unfucking believable. And if you have a good imagination and you're the type of person that, like, when you read, you can, like, you know, visualize the shit that's going down, then that story in particular will fuck your brain up. It has everything. Hang on one second. All right, I just had to blow my nose real quick. I'm still getting over this fucking cold. It's been kicking my ass. It's been kicking my fucking ass for like a week. Like right around Father's Day, I got it. And I was bad off throughout that whole last week. I started to finally feel a little bit better last Thursday. And I'm still coughing this shit out and having to like blow my nose and stuff. It's fucking gross, man. All right, let's get this thing set back up. Grab a drink, pack this fucking bowl. And then we're going to get into Captain Jack Rackham, also known as John Rackham. All right. Yeah, for sure, Foolish Flock. Yeah, he says, shit, my hands hurt like hell in the winter. I could only imagine. Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that kind of cold. No fucking way, bro. No fucking way. Not for me. I hate the cold. I literally fucking hate the cold. Gigi's heard me bitch about. Gigi's like that too. He hates the fucking cold, but not as much as I do. I literally despise that shit. I do everything I can to not have to go out in it. I wear all kinds of layers and stuff. Fuck that. I hate the fucking cold, man. Yeah. One of the funny conversations MRE and I have had has been when we talked about like if we had to die from heat or cold, he says he'd rather freeze to death. And I told him I'd rather fucking die melting in a desert. One of the things he and I are like on the total polar opposites of, he's like, fuck that. I'll just fall asleep in the cold. I'll pass out from it. I won't even know it happened. He's like, you're going to get fucking organ failure and everything else and sweat. I'd much rather it, bro. I welcome it. I would rather die slowly, sweating to death and dehydrating than freeze to die. I fucking hate the cold, man. I fucking hate it. I curse it. You think Gigi will get snow in Sydney? Does it snow there? I don't know. If you know what? I mean, that might be my own ignorance, but it just doesn't seem to me that it snows in Australia. I like fall when it's that perfect mixture of not too hot, not too cold. Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people too. I say, give me the hot. I live in hell. I'm used to it. I'm from hell. I like the heat. I'm used to it. I'll take the scorcher afternoon. Yeah. But does it fucking snow in Australia? I'm going to have to look that up because that's tripping me out. Oh, I know, Egon. I'm fully aware. I would much rather go out from the heat, though, than from cold. I fucking hate cold, man. Hate it. But you're right. Neither would be pleasant. Either one, you're dying, right? It sucks ass. No problem understanding that. But I will take the heat, though. There we go. Get a little keef, a little hash going. Open up the lungs a little bit, huh? Make me cough that shit up. Yeah, smoking weed and talking about pirates. I hope everybody's been enjoying the series so far. This is episode 8. If anybody comes across this later, you haven't heard the other episodes, I encourage you to do that. We go through all kinds of great pirate history right from the very, very beginning with the Buccaneers. Click the like button. You know, if you haven't already, if you're in here now and you haven't already, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm gods tell other people that we exist. If you're listening to this later, also please hit the like button. Maybe leave a comment. Maybe your favorite story, or favorite part of the story with Charles Vane, or maybe just an opinion about how he went out. Maybe talk shit about the guy that ratted on him. Fuck that guy. Holier than thou Holford. Fuck him. You know, if you're into the history of Nassau and you know about these things already, maybe leave your 2 cents on Woodes Rogers. Fuck him. We'll be getting into him much later in our series. We'll have plenty more time to curse him. Hold on, what does this say? It's been snowing in the Middle East. The world is at its reset time. Oh, I got you. Hev is about to get snow. I don't think she's too far from Gigi. I just didn't know that it even snowed in fucking Australia. That's why I said it might be my own ignorance. What the fuck do I know? You know, what do I know? I don't know much. I know about Australia, what Gigi's told me and what I've seen in documentaries. You know what I mean? So what do I know about that shit? It just surprised me because I didn't think it did. think we're about ready to start our next tale. All right, let me put this thing out real quick. I don't leave it there smoking on fire. Usually a good idea. Here we go. Take a little hit off the pen. All right, I assumed Australia is hot all year. That's kind of like, I mean, I knew they got cold weather. I knew it was opposites of us, right? I knew like when we were hot that they were cold. I knew that kind of thing. I just didn't think it got cold enough to snow. But again, that might be my own ignorance. I really honestly don't know. All right. Here we go. Captain John Rackham, also known as Captain Jack Rackham, and his crew. This John Rackham, as has been mentioned in the last chapter, was quartermaster to Vane's company till they were divided and Vane turned out for refusing to board and fight the French man-o'-war. Then Rackham was voted captain of that division that remained in the brigantine. The 24th of November, 1718, was the first day of his command, and his first cruise was among the Caribbean islands, where he took and plundered several vessels. We've already taken notice that when Captain Woodes Rogers went to the island of Providence, which is Nassau, Bahamas, we've already taken notice that when Captain Woodes Rogers went to the island of Providence with the king's pardon to such as should surrender, this brigantine, which Rackham now commanded, made its escape through another passage, bidding defiance to mercy. To windward of Jamaica, a Madeira man fell into the pirates' way, which they detained for 2 or 3 days until they had made their market out of her, and then gave her back to the master, and permitted one Hosea Tisdale, a tavern keeper at Jamaica, who had been picked up in one of their prizes, to depart in her, she being then bound for that island. Okay, so they hit up a boat, they robbed it, and it had a tavern keeper that they knew, right? Because they're from Nassau. That's where they left from in the first place. That was their pirate kingdom until Woodes Rogers got there. They saw a tavern keeper on that boat that they knew, so they let them go. They robbed them and they let the boat go. After this cruise, they went into a small island and cleaned the bottom of their boat and spent their Christmas ashore, drinking and carousing as long as they had any liquor left, and then went to sea again for more, where they succeeded but too well, though they took no extraordinary prizes for above 2 months, except a ship laden with thieves from Newgate, bound for the plantations, which in a few days was retaken with all her cargo by an English man-of-war. Rackham stood off towards the island of Bermuda. Rackham stood off towards Bermuda and took a ship bound to England from Carolina and a small pink from New England, and brought them to the Bahama Islands, where with the pitch, tar, and stores they cleaned again and refitted their own vessel. But staying too long in the neighborhood, Captain Rogers, who was governor of Providence, hearing of these ships being taken, sent out a sloop well manned and armed, which retook both the prizes, and in the meanwhile the pirate had the good fortune to escape. At least they got away, right? So Woodes Rogers they shouldn't have gone back there anyway, if I'm being honest. Like it's full of fucking cops, right? I mean, I know it's where you're from, and like all the ins and outs and the little cays and inlets, and you know where to hide and shit like that. But dude, you can go to Port Royal, you can go to Tortuga. There are other islands that you can go to, but they're hanging out around the Bahamas. So of course, fucking the cops, Woodes Rogers, the governor, hears about boats getting fucking stolen, right, and getting robbed. And he sends out the cops, right? He sends out a boat that's well manned and well armed. And they went after Rackham. They were able to get both of the ships that he had stolen, but they didn't get him. He had the good fortune to escape. From there, they sailed to the back of Cuba, where Rackham kept a little kind of a family, at which place they stayed a considerable time, living ashore with their Delilahs till their money and provision were expended, and then they concluded it time to look out. They repaired to their vessel and was making ready to put to sea when a Guarda del Costa came in with a small English sloop, which she had taken as an interloper on the coast. So it's a Spanish guard ship, right? It says that they went near Cuba, and apparently Rackham had kept like a little kind of a secret family there. And they hung out there for a long time, or at least until they ran out of money and food and liquor. And then when they went back out to sea, they came across the fucking Spanish guard ship that was just coming in with a small English boat that they arrested for all intents and purpose, right? And were bringing them with them to shore. The Spanish guard ship attacked Rackham, but Rackham being close in behind a little island so she could do but little execution where she lay, therefore the Spaniard warps into the channel that evening in order to make sure of her the next morning. Rackham, finding his case desperate and hardly any possibility of escaping, resolved to attempt the following enterprise. The Spanish prize lying for better security close into the land, between the little island and the main, Rackham takes his crew into the boat with their pistols and cutlasses, and they rounded the little island, and they fell aboard their prize silently in the dead of the night without being discovered, telling the Spaniards that they were aboard of her if they spoke a word or made the least noise, that they were dead. And so they became the master of that boat. When this was done, Rackham slipped her cable and drove out to sea. The Spanish man-of-war was so intent upon their expected prize that they minded nothing else, and as soon as day broke, made a furious fire upon the empty sloop. But it was not long before they were rightly apprised of the matter and cursed themselves for fools to be bit out of a good rich prize, as she proved to be, and to have nothing but an old crazy hull in the room of her. So Rackham fucking pulled a quick one on him. That's actually pretty slick. Him and his guys got out of their ship into the little boat, rowed the long way around the small island to come up behind where the Spanish were with that English boat that they had taken, right? Rackham and his guys got onto that boat and sailed the fuck off in the middle of the night. So when the Spanish woke up in the morning and started cannoning the boat that they thought Rackham was in, they found it to be completely empty, and that the boat that they had taken was gone. So they're all kinds of pissed off right now. Okay. Rackham and his crew had no occasion to be displeased at the exchange that enabled them to continue some time longer in a way of life that suited their depraved tempers. So they're just happy they got free and away from the Spanish and they can go back a pirating. In August 1720, we find him at sea again, scouring the harbors and inlets of the north and west parts of Jamaica, where he took several small craft, which proved no great booty to the rovers, but they had but few men, and therefore they were obliged to run at low game until they could increase their company. So it looks like we just skipped like a bunch of time. They kind of took off. They made it, and they went pirating, and then we don't hear anything about them for like over a year and a half. No, it's about a year, right? Yeah, a year and a half. Yep, because they celebrated Christmas on that one island. This is shortly after that. Then we hear about them again in August of 1720. So almost 2 years, a little over a year and a half. Either way, in August 1720 is the next time we hear about him, right? So he escaped the Spanish, had all of his guys, whoever was on that English boat, and they rode the fuck off into the sunset, right? And they just went a pirating. That's what it says. It says they were just happy they got away from the Spanish and that they could sometime longer live in a way of life that suited their depraved tempers. They just went out a pirating again. And then the next we hear of them is over a year later in August 1720. We find him at sea again, scouring the harbors and inlets of the north and west parts of Jamaica, where he took several small craft, And it says that they didn't really get much out of these smaller boats, but they only had a few guys. So they were trying to run at low game or run at small prizes until they can increase their number. In the beginning of September, they took 7 or 8 fishing boats in Harbor Island, stole their nets and other tackle, and then went off the French part of Hispaniola, which is Haiti. So they went off the French part of Haiti and landed and stole a bunch of cattle with 2 or 3 Frenchmen they found near the waterside hunting of wild hogs in the evening. The Frenchmen came on board, whether by consent or compulsion, I can't say. They afterwards plundered 2 sloops and returned to Jamaica, on the north coast of which island near Porto Maria Bay they took a schooner. It was then the 19th of October, and then the next day, Rackham seeing a sloop in Dry Harbor Bay, he stood in and fired a gun. The men all ran ashore, and he took the sloop and lading. But when those ashore found them to be pirates, they hailed the sloop and let them know that they were all willing to come aboard. So that's pretty funny. Remember, we've talked about that before, that pirates recruit, right? When they take prizes, or another example is like when they take a boat and they're stealing from it, they've literally boarded that ship and they're stealing everything off of it, right? They always tell the men on the boat, you are welcome to join us if you want, right? And they would usually give like a big speech, like, you know, are you tired of captains being fucked up? And you know what I mean? Like, are you tired of them robbing you? Are you tired of being mistreated and told what to do all the time and being paid like shit? You know, they'd tell them, like, you are more than welcome to come and join us and be a pirate, right? You can come join the Brethren of the Coast, and you can leave all this bullshit behind. In this case, they came up on a ship, but when they boarded it, all the people jumped the fuck off and went to shore. But when the people on shore, I guess those guys didn't know they were pirates for whatever reason, because it says that they came upon them. I mean, it didn't say they raised fucking colors or acted like cops or anything. So for whatever reason, these guys ran. Maybe they just thought about it, because in the story it says, but when those ashore found them to be pirates, they then hailed the sloop and let them know they were all willing to come aboard of them. Probably the dudes knew they were pirates if they ran. Let's be realistic, right? And probably thought about it for a minute or had like a little conversation and said, well, shit, man, they didn't, you know, try and hurt us or kill us or anything. They're just, let's see if they need some people, right? I'd like to be a pirate. Would you like to be a pirate? You want to be a pirate? Cool, let's go be pirates, right? Rackham's coasting the island in this manner proved fatal to him, for intelligence came to the governor of his expedition by a canoe which he had surprised ashore in Ocho Bay, upon which a sloop was immediately fitted out and sent round the island in quest of him, commanded by a Captain Barnett, with a good number of hands. Rackham, rounding the island and drawing near the westernmost point, called Point Negril, saw a small boat, which at sight of the sloop run ashore and landed her men. When one of them hailed her, answer was made, they were Englishmen, and desired the small boat's men to come on board and drink a bowl of punch with them, which they were prevailed upon to do. Accordingly, the company came all aboard of the pirate, consisting of 9 people, in an ill hour. They were armed with muskets and cutlasses, but what was their real design by doing so, I shall not take upon me to say, but they had no sooner laid down upon their arms and taken up their pipes, but Barnett's sloop, which was in pursuit of Rackham's, came in sight. Okay, so Rackham saw a small boat. It had like 9 guys in it. They're recruiting, right? Captain Rackham and his people are recruiting. It said that they started off with small boats, right? Hitting small boats. They only had a few guys. They were trying to build up their numbers so they could go after bigger prizes. They've been building their numbers. They've already got a bigger boat, and they are looking for more men, more people to come pirating. They come across a small boat with 9 guys in it, and they say, hey, you guys want to come over and hang out and drink some liquor and have a fucking chat? These guys basically know what time it is, right? They're not stupid. They've been around, I'm sure. Old fisher, some fishermen around there. So they went on board of the ship with Rackham and the pirates. They came with their muskets and their cutlasses, so they definitely knew what time it was, right? But the problem is, remember the cop that got sent out by Rogers, right? Rogers heard again. They're creeping around this fucking island. What the governor hears about it, right? He hears about a pirate being off the coast of their island again. He sends out the cops again, right? He sends out another ship with a captain named Barnett. Well, it says as soon as these 9 guys loaded onto Rackham's ship and they sat down, it says they laid down their arms and they all picked up pipes to smoke together and have a drink. And right when that happened, somebody yelled out that they could see the cops. They saw Barnett's sloop had just come in sight and in pursuit of Rackham's ship. The pirates, finding that she stood directly towards her, feared the event and weighed their anchor, which they cut. But lately they let go and stood off. Captain Barnett gave them chase, and having the advantage of little breezes of wind which blew off the land, came up with her. And after a very small dispute, they took her and brought her into Port Royal in Jamaica. In about a fortnight after the prisoners were brought ashore, November 16th, 1720, a court of admiralty was held at the Santiago de la Vega, before which the following persons were convicted and sentenced of death passed upon them: John Rackham, captain; George Featherston, master; Richard Corner, quartermaster; John Davis, John Howell, Patrick Carty, Thomas Earl, James Dobbin, and Noah Farwood. The 5 first were executed the next day at Gallows Point at the town of Port Royal, and the rest the day after at Kingston. Rackham, Featherston, and Corner were afterwards taken down and hanged up in chains, one at Plum Point, one at Bush Key, and the other at Gun Key. That shit sucks, dude. What's a cutlass? A cutlass is a sword. Damn it, Mandy. So they fucking got him. And they fucking hung him in Port Royal, Jamaica. Yeah, they were tried in court January 24th, 1721. Yeah. And then after he was hung at Gallows Point in Port Royal, Rackham's body was then hanged up in chains. There was 3 of them, so either Plum Point, Bush Key, or Gun Key. And either way, they hung his body up in chains to just rot. Well, man, yeah, damn it, Mandy, the golden age of piracy, like a lot of these pirates' names that people have heard of that had all these major run-ins with the law, most of their stories don't turn out well. All your big success stories are basically earlier, much earlier. The Pirates of Madagascar, when we get into that, we touched on it a little bit because we had a couple of captains that we had to talk about that made it out into that part of the world. But when we get into the Pirates of Madagascar, they're the ones that had all of the richest and biggest prizes. Those were the guys that when they hit a ship, they literally hit like billions of dollars, right? And then earlier in the Caribbean, the pirates that would do the land raids or hit galleons and shit like that, they would get a lot of money, right? And then a lot of those guys got away. Fucking Captain Morgan was made governor by the king. He was fucking knighted. He became Sir Henry Morgan. He was a fucking governor, right? Died a governor, died rich as fuck. right? So like a lot of those earlier pirates, that some of them do have decent stories where they got to keep their money and sail off into the sunset, where they did some serious robbing, took some very serious chances, and they got to die a pirate. Like even Mansvelt died of old age, right? And he was one of the OG like land raiders. He's one of the people that had helped set up Port Royal. That was kind of like a guy that Morgan sailed with, that would have been an OG to Morgan, gave Morgan help and stuff like that. So sorry about the fucking sneeze. This cold needs to fuck off. But yeah, a lot of these stories, Mandy, like in this period of pirating, like they're cool and you get like some adventure in it and you get the cops versus robbers fights, which is always good. But almost all of them end really, really badly, and just think about that though. Like John Rackham, he was literally hung at Gallows Point. That's a famous fucking place. It's a very, very famous place. He was hung at Gallows Point in Port Royal, and then they hung his body in chains for all of the, that was just for ships and people. Like when the ships would sail by, there'd be a sign that said pirate, and then there would literally be like a skeleton or, the skeleton. And depending on when you saw it, put it that way, the birds might still be picking the fucking eyeballs out. The hair might still be on it, right? Depends on when they just left it there. And you would literally see skeletons hanging in chains from rocks and from precipices. And like, a lot of times they put them in gibbets, but sometimes they literally just hung the fucking skeletons up in their chains and just left them there. Their bodies, and they turned to skeletons. It's fucking crazy. And you would see them there for a fucking decade, right? I mean, they were there for a long time. A really long time. All right, so let's finish this one up. We know he got hung. We know all of his pirate buddies got hung. But what happened to the 9 guys that literally just walked onto their boat to quote unquote have a bowl of punch and a smoke, right? What happens with those guys? But what was very surprising was the conviction of the 9 men that came aboard the sloop the same day she was taken. They got convicted. They were tried at the adjournment of the court on the 24th of January, waiting all that time, it is supposed, for evidence to prove the piratical intention of going aboard the said sloop. For it seems there was no act of piracy committed by them after their coming on board, as appeared by the witnesses against them, who were 2 Frenchmen taken by Rackham off of the island of Hispaniola and deposed in the following manner. That the prisoners at the bar, John Eaton, Edward Warner, Thomas Baker, Thomas Quick, John Cole, Benjamin Palmer, Walter Rouse, John Hanson, and John Howard, came aboard the pirate sloop at Negril Point, Rackham sending his canoe ashore for that purpose. That they brought guns and cutlasses on board with them. That when Captain Barnett chased them, some were drinking and others walking the deck. That there was a great gun and a small arm fired by the pirate sloop at Captain Barnett's sloop when he chased her, and that when Captain Barnett's sloop fired at Rackham's sloop, the prisoners at the bar went down under the deck. That during the time Captain Barnett chased them, some of the prisoners at the bar, but which of them he could not tell, helped to row the sloop in order to escape from Barnett, that they all seemed to be consorted together. This was the substance of all that was evidenced against them. The prisoners answered in their defense that though they had no witnesses, that they had bought a small boat in order to go a-turtling, and being at Negril Point and just got ashore, they saw a sloop with a white pendant coming towards them, upon which they took their arms and hid themselves in the bushes. That one of them hailed the sloop, who answered that they were Englishmen, and desired them to come aboard and drink a bowl of punch, which they first refused. But afterwards, with much persuasion, they went on board in the sloop's canoe and left their own small boat at anchor. That they had been on board but a short time, when Captain Barnett's sloop heaved in sight, that Rackham ordered them to help to weigh the sloop's anchor immediately, which they all refused. Bullshit. That Rackham used violent means to oblige them, and that when Captain Barnett came up with them, they all readily and willingly submitted. When the prisoners were taken from the bar and the people present being withdrawn, the court considered the prisoners' cases, and the majority of the commissioners being of the opinion that they were all guilty of the piracy and felony they were charged with, which was the going over with a piratical and felonious intent to Jack Rackham, and known as a notorious pirate, and by them known to be so. They all received the fucking sentence of death, which everybody must allow proved somewhat unlucky to the poor fellows. That shit sucks, man. That shit sucks. The cops were like, fuck you. You know who that was. You took your guns and swords with you. You went on board with them. You just happened to get caught right then, but you were totally turning pirate, so we're going to fucking kill you anyway. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. Cops are dirty fucking bastards, man. On the 17th of February, John Eaton, Thomas Quick, and Thomas Baker were executed also at Gallows Point at Port Royal. And the next day, John Cole, John Howard, and Benjamin Palmer were executed at Kingston. Whether the other three were executed afterwards or not, we're not sure. We haven't heard. 2 other pirates were tried that belonged to Rackham's crew, and being convicted were brought up and asked if either of them had anything to say why sentence of death should not pass upon them. In like manner as has been done by all the rest, and both of them pleaded their bellies, being quick with child. Oh, that's okay. Well, that's when we get to Mary Read and Anne Bonny. But so it's saying that 2 of the pirates that were with Rackham's crew were women. And when asked why a sentence of death should not pass upon them, both of them basically said because we're pregnant, and prayed that execution might be stayed so that they didn't also murder their babies. Whereupon the court passed sentence as in cases of piracy, but ordered them back until a proper jury should be appointed to inquire into the matter. So we're gonna get into the lives of Mary Read and Anne Bonny next week. And that's a really, it's a very cool story. It's a very sad story. And the ending of it is also very, very controversial and has a bit of conspiracy to it. So that one's going to take a while for us to go through and like really explain a lot of things about the lives of Mary Read and Anne Bonny and like where they come from and stuff. So like we'll read the stories along like we always do, and then I'll stop and break things down and add information like I always do. You know, I always throw in some extra stuff here and there that you might not find necessarily in just this one book, because I've read all of them. But yeah, so it ends just like it. We're doing this in a specific order on purpose. Like I said, just like when Vane's story ends, Jack Rackham's story begins. And as we learn about Jack Rackham's story, it leads us into the stories of Mary Read and Anne Bonny, which are the 2 most famous. Women were not allowed on pirate ships. They weren't allowed on like anything but a passenger ship. Women were considered bad luck. So women weren't allowed on fishing boats. They weren't allowed on military boats. They weren't allowed on pirate ships. They weren't allowed ever. They were considered to be bad luck. And caused like fighting and bad feelings between men, and you know, men are fucking stupid. They get covetous, and then they get protective over something that was never theirs to begin with, and you know, then you're gonna maybe have relationships that fail, and now they hate each other. It's just not a good look, right? But beyond that, humans are very, very, very weird creatures, right? We're very superstitious, always have been. Hence all the cults and fucking religions we have in this world. It's why it's able to take control of you and make you control yourself. It's preyed upon, that superstition, right? So women were considered very, very bad luck. However, there are a few cases of female pirates. In the Caribbean, though, there was only a couple of them, like maybe 3 or 4. We'll say, so that's a few. There was probably a very small handful. All but 2 get a momentary glance from history, right? All but 2 just get like a bare mention. And that's because the lives of Mary Read and Anne Bonny were extraordinary on their own. Even without the fact that they were on one of the most famous pirates' ships, right? Because they also, not both of them, so I should say one of them was also there with Vane, right? She was always Jack Rackham's like main number 1 squeeze, right? They weren't married, but they weren't not married, if that makes sense to a lot of grown-up people, right? They'd been together since they were 13. They were both like runaways, ended up on a pirate ship together as children, right? Like literally sailed with like Hornigold and Jennings and all these people. They came up together as pirate children, and she was accepted. She was fully accepted into the Brethren of the Coast. Full on fucking pirate since a kid. And she and Jack Rackham together were literally inseparable. They were very, very, very much in love. But they were fucking pirates. They were insane people. And neither of them, they had an open relationship, is the way that we would put it in our current terms, right? In modern terms, they had an open relationship. Oftentimes, Jack Rackham would also be with other women, especially when they were at port. Usually she would be right there by his side, partying and getting drunk, and she liked women, So it was a wild relationship. But they were together for a very long time. So she was even there for Vane and all that kind of stuff. Now, the other one has a crazy fucking life and then kind of falls into the pirate life much later and much closer to the end. She really wasn't there for a very long time before they ended up getting arrested, right? So we're going to get into all of that next week when we get into Mary Read and Anne Bonny. And again, like I say, it's a really cool story, but it's got depth to it, right? It's a very sad story. A lot of it's very intricate. We're going to have to go through it, kind of break it down. There's like a lot of relationship kind of stuff. And but you want to talk about tough and women that knew how to throw down and fight. Dude, most of the men were terrified to fight them. They were not trying to get into fights with these people. Like, these were women that could stand in the street with all of the other pirates in fucking Nassau, in Port Royal, in Tortuga. And they were, Anne Bonny anyway. This was a woman that could stand in the street in these pirate kingdoms and be respected and not fucked with and feared by a lot of people that did not want to draw blades against her. She would fucking kill you. There are stories, and I'm sure they're going to be in this book as we read through their tales. There's times when shit would get so thick in fighting on the deck that some of the men would run away, and the only people left holding their fucking swords were like Rackham and Anne Bonny, and then later Mary Read. They were known to never, ever, ever surrender, never to run. They would face off as many people as you threw at them. They were very, very, very tough. do I know what day yet? What day I'll do the next pirate show? No, it'll either be next like Monday or Tuesday, like Wednesday at the late, sometime between Monday and Wednesday. I've been trying to do them on like Monday or Tuesday. Because I like to leave Wednesday open in case I'm going to do a hell chat, like a random hell chat, which I haven't done in a good long while. But I've had a lot going on in my world over here. For the past few months, I've had a lot of shit going on. But I've still been trying to keep Wednesdays open for Hell Chat if I end up doing one or decide to do one, or if something crazy comes up and one becomes necessary. So most likely next Monday or Tuesday will be the next pirate show. And that's when we will do Mary Reed and Ann Bonny. We'll get into that. So everybody click the like button on the way out. I appreciate it very much. Share if you have a channel and you think anybody that you, or maybe send the link to anybody that you think that would be into pirate history or would enjoy this show. Copy the link, just email it to them or text it to them or something like that. Shoot it to them in some kind of interweb type message, right? Tell them to check it out. But yeah, click the like on your way out for sure. If you're listening to this later, click the like if you haven't already. Leave a comment, about just like I said with Vane, leave a comment about Rackham or his tale or, Woodes Rogers if you know about him, or Nassau or any other thing that we've talked about tonight. If you haven't heard any of the other episodes, if you're just finding this show, they're all in a playlist on this channel. You can check them all out. This is episode 8. Episode 1 starts right at the top with a first-hand account of a man showing up in Tortuga in 1666, and he tells us all about the original Buccaneers and the origin of them and the first acts of piracy by them and how it all kicked off. And then it works its way forward through all of the history, all of the pirates. So check all that stuff out. I will see you guys. Well, anybody I can see the people that are in here. So I will see you all Friday for the Skullbro show. I don't know if I'm going to do a hell chat tomorrow or not. If I do, you'll see something come up like in the evening that, one is coming, more than likely. Sometimes I just pop up, but if I do, it'll be around 10:30 as always. That's the time I come on. So, if I do a hell chat tomorrow, it'll be at 10:30. If you don't see me tomorrow, I will see you on Friday for the Skullbro show for sure, where we will be doing our weekly gathering of all of the most insane and weird news I can find, along with some fucking trash to put on blast. And then we'll talk about all of our current events and talk shit about the people that we don't like. So I will see you all on Friday if I do not see you tomorrow. Aegon, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Foolish Lock. I appreciate that very much. Aegon, hit me up. If you want to do there's no pressure, dude. You know what I mean? If you want to do another weirdish episode, hit me up so we can plan it. But no sweat. Like I said, I enjoy doing those shows with you. I know people like the shows when we do those shows. So if you want to do one, hit me up and so we can plan one. Because I do want to do a show on like CERN and the Mandela effect. And I've been telling you that I want to do that. So I'm going to do that soon. I'd like to do one with you. So if you want to, hit me up. If not, no worries. And I'll go ahead and I'll do one soon without you. But if I hear from you, we'll get it set up. Gigi, hit me up too. What's up, man? Yeah, you got the end again. Yeah, Gigi, hit me up. I know we've been going back and forth. I literally just have to put like a lot of those files on a fucking USB, bro, and we'll set up a chat. And just like we did before when I played all that stuff for you before, we can just go through all the files or whatever, and we'll see if you like one. If not, maybe we'll just talk about putting something together. I'll just build, you know what I mean? I'll make you something. I'll just write something for you, man. It's not a problem. But let's go through what I've got first. Okay, go on, hit me up tomorrow then. If you want to do that, that'd be great, man. And we'll figure out what day we want to do the show. But I want to do it on CERN and the Mandela effect. I want to dive deep into the fact that we're all dead, and most people don't know it, just us. The smart people know we're dead. And yeah, Gigi, hit me up. Let me know when you want to try and have a chat, and I will just stack a bunch of shit onto a USB. I'll plug it in, and then yeah, we'll just go through them one by one, just like we did the last time when we were going through them for like the couple of soccer episodes we did or whatever. And you can pick something in there. Like I said, if you don't find nothing out of the stuff I've got already, I have a pretty fucking crazy wide catalog. You know that. But if you don't find anything in there, I'll just fucking write you something, dude. It's not a big deal. Yeah, I know I had some stuff that you liked. I just don't. And I know you like a lot of the stuff that we've listened to before together, but I also know you're like putting some stuff together right now. It might not be exactly what you're looking for this project exactly. So let's just go through it. Hit me up and let's figure that shit out. We've been going back and forth for a while. We need to just knock down a time. Thursday, I'll be open to chat. Same thing to like Aegon or whatever. We can actually fucking all chat and just knock this all out in one go. We can play a bunch of stuff, and Aegon and I can talk about stuff. So I'll be free tomorrow night, and then possibly Saturday, and then definitely Sunday. So we can either do it tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday. Plan on that. Let me know which one of those will be better for you, Gigi, tomorrow or the weekend. And then we'll figure that out. And then Aegon, hit me up tomorrow. We'll figure out when, same thing. We can chat tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday and start putting that show together. And with that, I'm out. I'm going to go and pack myself a bowl, and I'm going to get myself a fresh drink, grab a fucking smoke, and then I've got a few other things I'm going to be working on before I go to sleep. I'm going to be up for a little while, per usual. Me and my insomnia will be up for a good little while still. So I will talk to you all on Friday. And Gigi and Aegon, I will talk to you tomorrow. You guys be safe. Later.